Hey guys, Rex here. Good morning. We're going to do the real dope on quantum computers and on AI. The real dope, like the actual truth. The world is trying to bamboozle you. I don't know if you know this. And there's nothing that a bunch of evil computer nerds would love more than to try to convince you through their propaganda mechanisms everywhere in the world that their creation is God. Because then what does that make them? That makes them the father of that God. That's the prelude. Okay. So here's a question from Mr. James. It came in on Patreon. If you guys are on Patreon and supporting in a way more than words like the band Extreme sings, then I will answer any questions you have in Patreon. Just PM me if you're in there like on the expert level or above, which is less than a Tootsie Roll a day. I can't afford a Tootsie Roll, Rex. Get off your phone immediately. Get off your phone immediately. Can't afford a Tootsie Roll. Dear Lord, what are you doing on your phone watching this? Ay, people. Get a job. Never listen to Stuck Mojo? Like, oh boy. They're very serious about trying to encourage people that can't afford Tootsie Rolls to actually go to the wanted section of your newspaper. All right, so here's a question in from Mr. James, who could afford a Tootsie Roll and the at least a minimum of expert level on Patreon. This question, all right, so here's the question. This will wait until you have time. I was trying to catch up and watching one of Pastor Joe Fox's videos because it was at the top of the list. YouTube successfully tempted me with this video, quote, ethical hacker. I'll show you why Google has just shut down their quantum chip, unquote. Because the poster in the face used the face of Ryan Montgomery on the thumbnail and the clickbait worked. Everything before 1545 is mere prelude to my question. Okay, so here's the deal, guys. I typically evade watching propaganda on the computer, like videos about how computers are God. That's the new trend, you know. That's where it's headed. I read the Bible. That day will come. That day might be here. That day is already kind of here for people that live around there. You know, the Babylonian rectangle of death is the source of all life, right? Plan to. I'm just going to read your question here. The theory offered at that point was that the quantum chip had approximated an arrangement similar to biological brains. That if I may paraphrase my memory of my understanding at the time, act as an antenna and receive and process quantum information rather than form consciousness. Or do you mean from consciousness? That idea reminded me of creation being the result of speech. It reminded me that the word, capital W, is such that it cannot be disobeyed. It made me wonder if biological brains do in fact work like antenna receiving information on a quantum level. They're trying to still figure out how that works. The human brain, computing power, they can't even put a number to it because it's not the same. It's not like bits. If they translate it to bits, that's a linear. It's not like multi-dimensional directionality of how everything can be accessed from every direction. Like there's not an equivalent like unit of measure to explain even a bumblebee's brain. So just the computing power of your brain to process the amount of visual information you receive through your eyeballs throughout your life. I think a teenager kid who's experienced life and how much of the visual imagery is actually compacted into files and stored away in the mind has more bits of information just in visual memory input stored in the brain than the entire capacity of the entire cyberspace world since computers were invented. It's like exponentially larger storage, recall, RAM, and all that. Imagine like every single file ever created on all computers in the world. And the human brain can index a visual memory and like, beep, oh yeah. The pathways are so efficient. And the amount of information that's stored in the mind is incredible. They did research on bumblebees, on the computing power there. And they try to give you a number that in units that are not appropriate. But the bumblebee's brain can make computations and decisions so much faster than the largest defense and NASA computers ever created at the time. This is a few years ago, by like multifold. So Bumblebee's brain was faster than like the Cray supercomputer's modern equivalent still. So when you hit a bumblebee on the highway and it splatters on your windshield, that the computer in a bee, in an insect's brain, an insect, it vastly exceeds anything we've ever made, because the way that it's made is incredibly fearfully and wonderfully made. Yes, it is true quantum computing is what they're trying to reverse engineer that. So all the computer nerds in the world are trying to see how creation was put together so they can mimic it. Now, just for a point of reference, one of the posts I did today was a aviation quiz on Patreon talking about the difference between an F-22 Raptor and an actual bird that sits on the branch in the tree in your yard. The F-22 Raptor, beautiful aircraft, right? Super high performance specs, whatever, is effectively a tin can with fire shooting off the back compared to the sparrow on your tree, if you actually understand engineering. Show me an F-22 Raptor that can do all the stuff that a sparrow can do. It can't. Impossible. The precision engineering and all the stuff combined is like, it's literally like a soda can with fire shooting on the back in comparison, right? So that's just a prelude of where we're headed. Okay, so let's see. Act as an antenna to receive and process quantum information rather than from consciousness. The idea reminded me of the creation being the result of speech. It reminded me the word is such that it cannot be disobeyed. Made me wonder if biological brains do in fact work like antenna receiving information on a quantum level. Yes. And there's the crystal palace on the inside of the human brain. We can talk about that more on Patreon if you look at human anatomy and how it's wired. It's a radio receiver transponder, and there are settings that have to be adjusted properly to point it in the right direction. But yes, I mean, the human mind is beyond Area 51 alien technology. Okay? Do you suppose that may be the case? Oh, yes. Yes, I mean, the creation, this world in which we've been handed, is incredible. And the computer nerds lust after that type of respect. Okay? By the way, the TLDR of Ryan's observations is that these patterns resembling ancient symbols were not random nor messages from parallel realities or artifacts of quantum consciousness, but a quantum flaw in the way quantum computing systems process information that is exploitable, that is intrinsic to the quantum architecture of the, itself rooted the defining properties of superposition and entanglement that amount to attack vectors just waiting to be exploited and cannot be coded or engineered away that amount to unfixable vulnerabilities that enable undetectable exploitation. That's a mouthful. These vulnerabilities become more complex as the system becomes more complex. The more powerful the quantum computing system, the greater the risk. Admittedly, that part does seem practically self-evident. As the process continued, these emerging anomalous outputs become only more complex and more coherent. By the time Google shut the chip down, these outputs were forming what appeared to be a full-fledged encryption protocol existing entirely on the quantum level that leveraged states of entanglement to create a method of encoding that would be unbreakable even by another quantum computer. Yeah, so like all of life systems that are on Earth are already that way. What they're doing here is trying to steal thunder. This has always existed since creation was put here. Life, leaves on trees. You look at the chlorophyll on the leaf on a tree. Look at the ecosystem we are in. Look at the quantum, just the metabolism, metabolic pathways, and the machinery of life in the electron transport chain, let alone all the stuff that happens on the cellular level. They're mimicking the language of biology. They're converting. So this is a black magic trick. You convert the language of something that's already in creation, existing. You twist it to claim authority over it by using the logic system and changing keywords like, oh, that's my computer word that I used. They're describing life that is already here, that biologists basically understand in pretty good detail. And they're just like converting it to computer language, stealing the thunder of life and saying, oh, see, we created life. Yeah, okay, so like even if that is all true, I call bullshit. I call bullshit, by the way. But even if that was true and they have recreated life in their computer lab effectively, it's going to be a terrible tin can crayon eater drawing. You know how there's the kid with the drool coming out in the corner of the room? Sorry if that's insensitive. I don't know. I was raised in the old days. And they got the crayon and they're like pressing it into the paper so hard and getting drool on the paper and the paper tears in half. And they're like, all right, let me see your drawing. It's a tree. And it's not, doesn't look, it's just like a big yellow streak across the paper. You're like, good job, Timmy. We appreciate it. We'll hang it on the fridge. That's the best these computer guys can come up with compared to actual life. It's a two-dimensional, or like in orders of dimensionality, because if it's quantum, right, then it's going beyond the 3D. Let's say that they could achieve 4D specifications. It's still literally like a can with fire shooting off of the back compared to, you know what I mean? Like alien UFO tech. It's the difference between my garbage can that's on fire over here when we burn garbage and a flying saucer, if such things exist. By the way, we'll do the real dope on aliens and UFOs. All that's on YouTube, or Patreon, right? So yes, let's read the question here further. Decryption protocol existing entirely on the quantum level that leverage states of entanglement to create a method of encoding that would be unbreakable by another quantum computer. Yes, life already does that. Actually, they're in perfect pre-synchronization with other computers, but with security measures and filters and gates. If you look at just the microbiology mechanisms on the cellular level of the gates and keys process of what gets into the cell, what doesn't get into the cell, which things are compatible. By the way, that's why we are instructed to have a very specific diet, and certain things do not work very well with us, and it causes a lot of problems. We are very specifically engineered to consume certain kinds of things, and we do not consume certain kinds of other things for this reason, for filters and gates and balances of the micromachinery. No one is certain whether this occurred naturally or was intentional on the part of the chip itself. So this is like Terminator 3, Skynet comes aware. Right? Is that the science fiction here? Let's read more. The two competing theories are one, that the chip, well, hold on. I'll add a competing theory after we're done. The two computing theories are one, the chip was developing protections for itself to guard against outside interference, and two, that the chip was developing a quantum weapon that would render all encryption systems obsolete. I thought it was implicit in the idea of the chip building a defense against outside interference. Oh, well, I guess that's the way the video runs. Apparently, all the usual suspects, now there's a key word we're going to come back to later, are said to have been somewhat panicked. And I would say that all the usual evil actors find the idea of rendering all encryption useless all the more irresistible. The question that occurred to me when they said that the chip was developing its own defense was whether that it was intended to protect itself from other quantum computers or whether it would share the keys with other quantum computers. Mr. James. All right, so I'll offer a competing hypothesis. Or these are the same clowns that have been bamboozling the world with their screens and with the Donna Reed show, trying to create what? Trying to create any kind of reality which they can control so that you can submit to that reality which the Bible maybe refers to towards the end of the book, is going to happen and is happening already on a smaller level. And they're lying. This is my competing theory is that this is actually propaganda using the language of biology. Why? Why do I say that? Because these guys are criminal crackheads. People are in love with the idea of how powerful computers are. How powerful they are, Rex. Did you see how powerful the quantum computer was? I'm not impressed. A mosquito is more impressive to me than their best quantum computers. Why? Because I know some of these people. I'm not saying they're terrible, not all of them. Some of them are okay. But there is a hubris. And look at freaking Bill Gates. They plagiarize everything. And it's all positioning themselves to receive a spotlight. I created Frankenstein. It's the same story as Frankenstein, except not true. The best they could possibly do, let's say that, this is classic propaganda. And what's the propaganda? This is my alternative hypothesis. To me, when I read this story, and I'll watch the video, okay? And if I change my mind, I won't post this one. But I've seen enough of them from over the years that are headed in this direction, and there's a common component. It's propaganda designed to get you to respect, which is in Hebrew or in the Ten Commandments, it says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." Okay? The word gods is Elohim. That means powers. That means anything that has any power. You're not allowed to respect any other power. All power is his. And what these guys are trying to do is create propaganda that, who benefits from this story? That's my question. Who benefits from this story the way it's written? Wow, those guys must be the ultimate Elohims because they created a computer god. Let's worship them. Now, you guys are using English church terminology when I say worship in Elohim. The commandment actually is saying you can't fear any of that power. All the power, the real power is his. He invented physics and math and the chemistry and all the stuff in which computers are constructed. He controls all that. He made it. He drafted it. It synchronizes with all the rest of his creation, including his word. And we violate the first commandment when we wonder after the beast. Wow, Rex, did you hear about the beast? Yeah, hell with that. This was told in the book. What is it? They will have no rest day or night. Those that wonder after the beast, those that follow after the beast. You can translate that a number of different ways depending on which version you're reading. Those that serve the beast with their time and attention. That's what the word when it says thou shalt serve no idols. Serve means time and attention and energy expenditure and monetary expenditure to serve the Elohim. If the power is your computer stuff and you're serving it to follow after that power that a bunch of bad people, here's the key thing. Let's say a bunch of convicted felons that were into fraud, lying, manipulation, continuously trying to be the supervillain on Inspector Gadget that they watched when they were kids. So they watched Inspector Gadget so many times, they wanted to be Dr. Claw. I'll get you, Gadget. I'll get you. And they just show the claw petting the cat. That's who they want to be because they're like comic book nerds. And so they want to achieve that level of like fear and respect. I'm serious. Let's say they're all convicted felons, which many of them are, for doing fraud. That's lying. Who they if they have a fraudster convention of guys with this God Lucifer complex get together and draft a freaking cartoon or have it done, like explaining how scary and terrible this creation they made is, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not impressed. Look at the birds of the air. Do they worry about all the stuff we worry about? Why? Look at a microscope. Every cell in that bird is individually more complex than all the stuff there when you consider actually the machinery and all the details of where the light goes through the machinery of the the microstructure of the cell. But in biology, Yah actually has the real power. Ours is a counterfeit tin can version of anything he's done. Artificial intelligence is exactly that. That's the key word, artificial, fake. Artificial equals fake intelligence. So let's say that a bunch of bad people programmed a giant computer. Oh my gosh, look at the computer. Yeah, it's programmed by flawed, bad people that think Mrs. Popkey's third grade science lesson was true from the government-sponsored religion. All their entire house is built on a shoddy foundation of sand, and it's a house of cards, and there's a windstorm coming. They're fraudsters, and they specialize specifically in bamboozling people to think they're God. That's been the point of their entire escapade since the beginning. So I do not consume propaganda. Now, I could to explain how it is propaganda, but the problem is, here's the thing. When you guys share these videos with each other, you're inadvertently, unwittingly causing people that are not grounded on the foundation of the rock to fear the Elohim of this world, which is this comic book story of Skynet becoming self-aware. Wow, those guys are powerful. That's what the word Elohim means. It doesn't mean just Zeus and Thor and all those guys, and Molech and whoever. It means any of that stuff. You're tempting people to break the first commandment. I'm commanded not to respect any of the false gods, especially the ones made by comic book nerds that, what did they just pull a couple years ago? What did Bill Gates pull? You guys have see, and I'm not telling you, brother. People in general have a goldfish memory and they can't connect one thought to the other. Why? Because we've been made stupid through consumption of propaganda on the TV. Maybe a lack of coffee in some cases. Coffee does help a little bit because it's biological computing enhancing power. Crayon eater coffee, see that right there? Crayon eater coffee, by the way. See what I just did there? Let me tell you something. I'm not impressed by convict fraudster nerds and their comic book propaganda. I can make a video. Hey, I could get a bunch of blinking lights, put them in my garage, and have them blink. And I could create some steampunk prop for my YouTube channel. And I could say, breaking news, guys. Rex here. I created a robot, and it shall conquer the earth. I didn't know, but only I have the keys. It's like that movie Canadian Bacon where they have the hacker Hellstorm or whatever. It's like the giant computer that's going to launch all the missiles. I could make a video saying that's me. That's what they're doing. They just have more money than you because they sell digital crack, which is more, I mean, you think drugs are bad. Oh my gosh, the cartels, Rex. What about the digital crack cartels? Are you a digital crack pusher working inadvertently for the digital crack cartels, promulgating propaganda, unwittingly elevating other Elohim, literally in direct violation of the first commandment of the Bible, Rex, that's a dusty old yucky law. We don't do the law anymore. We're free from the law, Rex. Your reading comprehension skills are not up to par. We need to have a sit down and read one sentence at a time and see what these words mean. Do you have a dictionary? You telling me it's work to follow Papa's instructions of righteousness? It is not work. If you love him, it's not work. And if you're scared of the nerd's computer or wondering after, did you hear? Hold on a minute here. Let's just rewind 3,000 years. Rex, did you hear? The moon god came out and swallowed the moon. The priest told me. That priest is a fraudster on top of the pyramid that cuts out hearts. By the way, that's what these other guys do, right? You guys tell me how bad they are all the time. They're just like the Aztec priests or whatever on top of pyramids, just, you bet, making sacrifices like on the movie Apocalypto. And they're dancing around on a pyramid and the moon disappears and like, it's the moon snake. So they're utilizing natural phenomenon, creating a lexicon around it, claiming ownership over it, and then saying it was them that controlled the moon snake when in fact it was just an eclipse. Because they just took notes. They were smarter than the average bear because they had a logbook. And they just wrote like, okay, every Tuesday this thing in the heavens happens, and every this many Tuesdays then there's an eclipse. They just logged it out and used it to leverage their propaganda to control civilization so they could eat hearts. Welcome to 2025. Same stuff, different day, guys. Same stuff, different day. Same exact story, different day. There's no difference. Rex, did you hear about the moon snake? Dude, calm down. There's no moon snake. Yeah, but the priest told me there was. Okay, hold on. Did the priest give you a certain drink when you were on the bottom of the pyramid to enhance your spiritual experience? If so, let me see that. Throw it into the bushes right now. Let's sober up here. Let me tell you, that guy has a logbook. He wrote down where the moon went. These guys have a biology book. They converted it into computer language. And yes, they probably made a tin can with sparks shooting out of it. Why do I say it like that? Because the best technology we have to offer is juvenile, dysfunctional tin cannery compared to a worm in the dirt when you get a microscope out and you look at what is actually happening. Our God, excuse me, I better be careful when I say that. The God that I serve, and hopefully that you can learn about, is actually God. And when I comprehend and shema that reality, you know what happens? All the other tiddly, I'm not impressed by the Legos. It reminds me of my kid. Look what I made. It's a tank. And it's like a block of Legos. And I'm like, cool. It's good imagination you got there, son. You're 5. That's fine. Is it really a tank? And if it was, is that even, you know what I mean? I'm not impressed by the shadows of the actual creation being redrawn by computer nerds that are prolific liars. They're prolific liars. Yes, I know that your iPhone has a lot of horsepower. It's a pretty amazing tool compared to a stick in the yard. But actually, if you look at the stick, it's made out of wood. Look at the wood. What made that wood? How come it's a self-reproducing resource that can grow food, self-maintain, adjust to the sunlight, computer settings, perfect solar system built into it? It's part of a machine that's infinitely more high-tech than your iPhone. So actually, a stick in the yard is infinitely more high-tech than your iPhones. And all the tree right over there is more complex if you actually look at the statistics of how it's arranged on the micro scale. Infinitely more complex than the scariest computers and robots that they made today. Okay, so everyone should just calm down. Did they reach self-awareness? It's artificial intelligence, keyword artificial. Okay, and is it intelligence when a bunch of crackheads programmed it? No. Crackheads with the wrong inputs. Their inputs are wrong. It's going to fall apart. It always does. The computer can't make babies, can it? Baby computers? Can the computer go out and get a snack and power itself? Can this giant, huge, self-aware computer go out and build its own baby computers? Now, I know there's religions where they fantasize about how one day that'll happen, but that's called television, which is a propaganda arm of these same people. And one day, by the way, one day there will be a computer that the world will probably serve. And they're going to actually believe that it's some kind of AI making decisions, when in fact, it was the Wizard of Oz pulling levers with steam shooting out who programmed it to say what he wants it to say. He talks into it. I am the great and powerful Oz. You shall give me your children's. Give me your wife and children's. Oh my gosh, the Wizard of Oz told me I need to do this. That giant thing with the smoke coming off of it, that's fake. When they come out with the beast system, it's going to be a couple of perverts behind the curtains telling that thing what to do and say. The Nazis did that, 80 years ago? With, what was it? What computer company was it? Oh, the computer told us they had an algorithm to who gets exterminated. It's called, what do they call that? Colonel, what's his name? Grossman? Can't remember. Who wrote the book on killing. Psychological leverage and distance. If the computer said, well, then that's not on me. It's easier for them to carry out psychotic orders when they pretend like, I threw the bones on the ground and they told me to do this. Throwing the bones on the ground told you what to do. The computer told you what to do. Your AI told you what to do. Your iPhone told you what to do. Hey Siri, what is this thing that I need to do? Hey Siri.
Mm-hmm.
Do you love me, Siri?
I respect you.
Oh, I knew it. See, we're friends now. And that's the real dope. Okay? For more on Sasquatch, aliens, anything else that you want to know about the real dope on, PM me within Patreon. I'll be more than happy to address it. They're almost exclusively always over there. If you are watching this publicly, you can thank the patrons for making it available. Without them, this stuff would not exist at all. So you guys have a wonderful day, and don't follow after pretend cardboard cutouts that look like a ghost that someone put a light behind it and shined it at you effectively in the vast scheme of things. Roger? Computers are not God. I know this new generation thinks they are, but they are not God. Rex out.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Mr. Rex has reprogrammed me, your loving Babylonian rectangle of death, to wake you up and snap you out of your beast system-induced trance. If you spent more than 1 minute of your day doom-scrolling to get your adrenaline hit for the day, you need to exit this projected digital false reality immediately. Invest a wise 83 cents per day of mere pocket change into expanding your horizons into realms unseen in our generation. Leave the chaos pimps of the Praposphere behind and get off of the X of their poisonous propaganda before it's too late. The clock is ticking. Life is too short to hold anything back. Learn to simmer down and be quenched by the waters of ancient time, proven wisdom and instruction. Learn to see for the first time the deeper, more meaningful reality that everyone else missed. Wipe your old operating system clean and embrace the true blueprints of life. Learn the difference between projected peacocking and true strength. Experience authentic levity in the face of the world's worst tyranny, and laugh in the face of Babylon's most miserable party poopers. If you sense there is infinitely more to life than just consuming and excreting what has been force-fed to you, VSL is the club for you. If you sincerely can't afford 83 cents per day, then get off of the computer immediately and rethink your life. Connect to the untapped well of fortitude that others can't find. Help yourself so you can truly help those you love. Note, VSL materials may be rated R for reality, unfiltered metaphors, and unedited face-melting veritas. We pull no punches, and we smash Babylon's most sacred idols with ferocity. If you are capable of securing this VSL level bandwidth for less than the cost of that nasty cheap gas station coffee you bought on your way to work, maybe we'll catch you on the flip side.